Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic is, as of this recording, I have 100 days clean and sober. When I did the 50-day video, I said in another 50 days we'll, review this thing, and here we are. And, it's funny, I was going to watch the video, just a little bit of it, to kind of see where my head was at, but I was like, no, don't let that influence you. Just say how you feel right now. You know what, I feel pretty good, and it's kind of funny, I think about this kind of area of time in early recovery, and I know that a lot of people in this 3 to 4 month window, there's a lot of relapses that happened. I mean, that was certainly the case for me for some time. It just, there was like the daily cycle of addiction, and I felt I was no longer part of that, but I was part of this sort of bigger cycle. It just seemed right around, 80 to 100 days there was a relapse. Now, like a lot of clinicians will tell you, this is a time where post-acute withdrawal symptoms can reemerge or really flare up. But that's not, maybe the case for everybody. But I think one other reason this may be the case is because, at this point, you might be either exited or exiting the sort of drastic change phase of your early recovery. Because it's a lot like if you were a person that was super unhealthy and overweight for a long time, and then you get on a diet and exercise, and you start eating healthy and exercising. Man, I mean, maybe 50 days doesn't seem like a lot, but you could see a drastic change. I mean, all the, like, those diet things and exercise regimens that they sell, they do, like, the before and after picture, right? Of the person and how much they lost and how different they look. And honestly, if you're just eating healthy and exercising, that will happen anyway. It'll be a drastic sort of change. And in the same way, when you quit drinking or using, you get into recovery, there is also those drastic changes. I mean, one, also physically, you're not as haggard and you don't have the wear and tear. And people may say that after a little while, you have a glow to your face. And you probably have that glow because, someone's actually home this time. And you're not just a chemically induced zombie. And as far as transformations may go, things can get better pretty quickly. Maybe not for every situation, but however, your work life is probably, at least it's getting easier because you're not either drinking or using at work or always hungover or withdrawing or anything like that, or just even having your mind constantly on it. Again, relationships may not be getting better, but you're more present in them. At least things will feel different. You can really feel a change in your life. And so one thing that may occur is that you maybe get used to this sort of rapid ascension, because just like with drugs and alcohol, and back to the sort of exercise and dieting thing, at a certain point, the pounds will stop falling off as they did. That sort of muscle definition won't be, you won't be building as much as you were, and you'll be in good shape and you'll look good, but you'll kind of be there for a while, and maybe even after a long time, there's not that much quote unquote improvement that you can really see. And I think, if you use that analogy for recovery, I think this is like at a good point where you might find out if you're really doing this for you, because 3 to 4 months is kind of it's maybe enough time to kind of get you out of a scrape that you might be in. I don't know what may have jump started this plan of action to get clean and sober. Was an ultimatum by the family or the spouse, or maybe something legally, and now you can get the judge or the courts, kind of off your back because you're doing things the right way and things are going good, or at work you could have had an ultimatum there, or health. Like even health, there's obviously some irreversible damage you can do, but even your health will, and I don't mean the way you look, but like in here will change pretty quickly. Like liver enzymes, for instance, can like really lower like after not that much amount of time, again, as long as it's irreversible, but you can still improve quickly. And so all of that kind of slows down in a way, and even like the sort of celebratory nature, like maybe you got sober and a lot of people didn't know, but you just received a lot of support, and a lot of people maybe still mean you well, but that sort of is lessening. I know that's always why it's important to have like a recovery circle and to be a part of the community, because they still will, celebrate your victories, and even in those though, a lot of people, they'll have some focus and attention to like who the newcomer is, because they know how like fragile and vulnerable time that early recovery is. And I'm not saying this is still early recovery, but it's just getting out of that sort of period where things are changing very quickly. And now it's kind of, well, at least the way it feels to me, it's on you. Were we doing this not just to have a better life, but to have a life? And what I mean by that is that it doesn't matter how long, you're clean and sober, or all the good habits and stuff you're doing. Your life is not always going to improve. In fact, it may get worse because of circumstances you can't control. And so what it comes down to is, though, recognizing that I have to do this to have a life, or any life that's even worth living. It's not going to be the best life. It's not always going to get better. It's not going to be everything I wanted. It may not be half of but it will be what I need, because I can't live the other way. Like, that is just not an option. And, I think this realization comes where you may get more freedom. The heat's off you a little bit more, maybe not completely, but again, you start to feel a little bit more autonomous. And maybe that sort of urgency that you had before, that was compelling you to go to the meetings, or to, partake in sort of counseling and all this, like all these things that you're doing, that urgency to do so has lessened, and you have to basically create the urgency in your mind. Like, no, we have to do this. It is not an option to stop doing this. It doesn't matter if I got off probation. It doesn't matter if I've patched things up. It doesn't. None of those things matter if I've done that, and I'm not under the microscope, maybe, because it will come. The microscope will come back. All the crap will come crashing down again if I do this. And like I said, a big thing is that enjoying, being grateful for just the life that you have, not needing it to always get better, not needing new things, like I got a better job, or like these finances allowed me to finally get this thing, or I had this, these big moments with my family or the people I love, and it was all due to the recovery. Like, those things are great, but a lot of times they'll become more few and far between. And so it's so important to recognize that it doesn't have to start that way. Like, you don't have to, like, a lot of people they're pushed into recovery because of some ulterior thing, some circumstance that is super important to them. And maybe they weren't doing it for themselves, but then they kind of learn to. Maybe, again, one big thing too is that from day 1 to day 50, a lot of this fog kind of clears away. It doesn't even take too long where you just look back and you're like, oh my God, I was living like that? Dude, that was insane. It was insane. I really believed those things about life, and just, oh my God. And so when you pull back even more, you have that clarity, and now that becomes kind of your normal, in a sense. Now, to be honest, where I'm at, it's still a battle. I still, just because you stop drinking and using doesn't mean all your sort of bad habits and bad ways of thinking just goes away. There's still a lot of work to be done. But I'm kind of, instead of comparing it with what I'm gaining or not, I'm just kind of comparing it to am I improving? Truthfully, I know this has been a place where I may not have been there before, but it feels that, hey, as long as we're in the right direction. Because one thing I will say is that there's a lot of times where, again, it could be post-acute withdrawal symptoms, or it could just be where your life's at, or I don't know, just something in your mind where you could be on month 7 and it could feel like week 2. Or you could feel like at 3 months or 4 months, you could feel like I never want to drink and use again. I'm never going to do it again. You could feel so like ultimately beholden to what your recovery program, and it's never going to occur to you again. I've been cured. And then you could go back to that, maybe slowly, maybe quickly, but your mind can change in these ways, and everything is temporary. So even these mindsets you have that seem like they'll last forever could also be temporary. People talk about the pink cloud, or things like that. But in all reality, there always has to be this sort of bottom line thing for me. I always have to have this, no matter what, no matter how things are going around me, no matter how things are going on in here too, there has to be this ultimate truth that we always hold on to, that we are not going back, and it is not an option. It is not on the table. It is not even gonna, if you're in some sort of jam, psychologically, then the thing that occurs to you now is, okay, well, we got to figure this out, because we're going to be stuck in it, because we are not pulling the ejector seat. Even if I have to tell myself that when I don't maybe totally feel it, it's This is something that has to be ingrained in me. So it doesn't matter what sort of progress I am or am not making or the way I feel about it, as long as I'm still doing the right things. I mean, there's certainly ways of like slipping back into old behaviors, and it's good to be cognizant of that. But the truth is that there has to, no matter what, be this sort of baseline reality that I will always live in, to know that I'm not going to do it normally, and I can't afford to do it at all, because truthfully, who knows how many, every sort of relapse, it is a spin of the wheel of the bad stuff that could happen. And then it could be stuff that's irreversible. And just taking that chance, I mean, the more, like, I honestly feel like I have gotten lucky in some sense of just, how many times I've failed or have been out there just being all sorts of crazy. And, there's been consequences for sure, but not ones that have completely altered my life, always for good. And so, the way I feel right now is that, like, I'm in a good place. Things are going well, and I don't need constant improvement of everything else but me. And again, it doesn't have to be this drastic improvement. It could be, it's just also just enjoying this process, because that is one way where, going back to the analogy of like working out and eating well, what happens for some people at a certain point is that it's not about like the getting healthy, your heart rate, or the weight you lose. They actually enjoy eating well. They enjoy somehow running in the morning. That's why you see people up at like 6 a.m. in like winter running, because not just because like I gotta lose these calories. They love doing it. And that is one of my goals, is to just be here and just love this process. I'm not going to cut it down by making a joke. I truly mean that.